Good afternoon, everyone. We thank you for joining us for today's webinar as we kick off our Memory Sunday series. We will be beginning momentarily, so we ask you just to hold tight, and again, we'll be beginning momentarily. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on Memory Sunday. I am Dr. Pranessa Steele, and the founder and CEO of the Balm and Gilead, and I am just happy to be here with you today. Thank you for taking the time. We are launching today Memory Sunday. It's a new campaign here at the Balm and Gilead, and we are calling all congregations around our country to designate June 11th. That's the second Sunday in June, one Sunday before Father's Day, a designated Sunday to really focus on Alzheimer's disease in the African American community. Many of you know, however, but for those who don't know, African Americans have the highest rate, particularly African American women have the highest rate of Alzheimer's in this country. But it's devastating everybody. Americans are being devastated by this horrendous disease, and there is no cure at this time. But we must look to educating and getting them screened and doing everything that we can to fight this devastating disease. I have very important people in my family with Alzheimer's, and I'm sure many of you on the call also. The purpose of Memory Sunday is to bring national attention to the tremendous burden of Alzheimer's, mostly Alzheimer's and other dementias, is having on the African American community. So I'm going to turn it over to Pamela, who's my deputy director and who directs our National Brain Health Center for African Americans here at the Balm and Gilead, funded through a cooperative agreement with the Centers for Disease Control. I'm going to turn it over to her, and she will conduct this webinar today. You can go to our website. We have everything is up there. I do believe the Book of Alzheimer's. We are launching the Book of Alzheimer's for African American congregations today. You can download it for free, and we're excited to be in partnership with the University of Kentucky Sanders Brown Center in this work with the Book of Alzheimer's and Memory Sunday. So without further ado, I want to thank you all again for joining us, and I'm going to give it over to Pam. Now, just before I go, I want to remind you that indeed there is a balm in Gilead. Go, Pam.
Thank you, Dr. Seal. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. Again, this is the first part of a 4-part webinar series, so we do ask that you join us for the entire series. Each webinar will take place on Wednesday at 1 p.m., so the same time. And we do hope that you'll be able to join us for the entire series. So today's webinar, though, will be focusing on providing an overview of what Memory Sunday is, why we understand or why we feel that Memory Sunday is an important initiative, especially in terms of raising awareness about Alzheimer's and other dementias, giving a little bit of an overview of the Balm's history, as well as the National Brain Health Center for African Americans, and then actually giving some background and context for the challenges related to cognition and dementia, and then specifically about how Alzheimer's is impacting the African American community. So I will remind everyone that everyone's lines will be on mute, but if at any point during the presentation you have any questions, there is a chat feature that should be located at the very bottom of your toolbar on the side. So if you have questions, please feel free to enter those into that chat box, and we will do our best at the end of the webinar to get to all the questions. I also want to remind everyone that a copy of the handout from today's presentation has actually already been included. If you click under handouts in your sidebar, you can go ahead and download those now. If for some reason you have difficulty in getting the slides or downloading them, we actually will be sending copies of that handout to everyone at the conclusion of today's webinar. So without further ado, we will go ahead and get started. So just a brief overview of the history and mission of the Balm and Gilead. So again, we are in our 28th year, and our mission really is to prevent disease and improve the health status of people of the African diaspora. We do that by providing support to faith and other institutions in the areas of program design, implementation, and evaluation. And we do this so that we can strengthen the capacity of our faith institutions so that they can deliver programs and services that will help address health disparities in their congregations as well as in their communities. So the National Brain Health Center, again, is a new initiative of the Balm and Gilead. We are in our 2nd year of this, and again, this is a cooperative agreement that we have with CDC and their Healthy Brain Initiative. And one of our objectives for the center is actually to raise awareness about the issues of cognitive health, specifically among African Americans, and doing this via building the capacity of African American congregations to become, partners in terms of understanding the prevention and disease management, caregiving aspects of this, and definitely the engagement or the need to engage and participate in clinical studies. Our second objective is to actually do training with healthcare professionals regarding how Alzheimer's and other cognitive health issues are truly impacting African Americans, which is different from other ethnicities and other populations. And we're doing this through a variety of partnerships with groups like the National Black Nurses Association, as well as the National Medical Association. And as Dr. Seal mentioned, we've partnered with some academic institutions as well, including the University of Kentucky and their Sanders Brown Center on Aging. So why do we need a Memory Sunday? Really, cognitive health issues like dementia and Alzheimer's create an extremely heavy burden on African Americans, on our families, on caregivers, and really on the community as a whole. There's also a huge financial impact that providing care for individuals with Alzheimer's and other dementias that is placing on programs like your Medicare, your Medicaid, as well as just the financial burden on personal finances. And so that's really why we feel that a Memory Sunday is needed, to have this designated time so that we can use the influence of the church and the influence of the faith community to really not only get an understanding of these issues, but providing a vehicle to actually raise awareness and implement programs that can help address some of these issues and challenges. So to do that really is to, again, to get an understanding of what cognitive health is. I mean, in a nutshell, cognitive health is really just how we think, how we reason, and how we remember. It's both the emotional functioning and the ability in terms of how we do those three things: think, reason, and remember. So if you can imagine, anytime any of those become out of attack, they can have significant impact on our daily life. So now as we age, we definitely will have some decline in our cognition. And so some of that, again, what we want to think about or consider in terms of things that occur with normal aging is that the intelligence is always going to remain intact. It may take us a little longer to do certain things and to carry out certain tasks, and it may take us a minute to recall certain information, but our intelligence will remain intact. And that's a big difference between just normal aging and the cognitive decline that comes with that versus actual, having dementia or some type of cognitive health disease. You will perform normally on any mental status exam that your doctor would do for you when you go in for an annual checkup. You still, again, may complain of occasional memory losses. And again, this can be experienced by healthy people and really at any age. I forget several things on a daily basis. And so it's to understand those things that may occur just as we age normally, may just, again, in terms of where we are and how much we have going on. We all right now are living and juggling multiple things, and that can, just, again, cause, us to cognitively, be a little bit, maybe not as sharp. And again, some memory loss may be more noticeable with age. And these are all things that would be characteristic just as we get older that we may start to see and to notice these things. So again, you may have decreased cognitive ability. So that's just the general slowing of how you function cognitively. You may have the diminished mental flexibility. And again, that's that recall, or that's kind of learning new things. It may take, some repetition, and may take several times for you to pick up a new task, or find a different way to solve a problem. You may have difficulty finding words. You're in the middle of a conversation and you're trying to think of the word. You can see it, but you can't get it out. Those may, that's a part of sometimes as we just get older that we may see that decline. And then sometimes what we call our working memory, and, sometimes we will refer to that as having a senior moment. And I'm not sure if senior moments is the right word, because, again, these moments and kind of episodes of having a lapse of really trying to, walking into a room, and as soon as you get in the room, you're like, now what did I come in here for? And I do that all the time, and some of that I think is just stress, and it's just a lot sometimes that's going on. But all those things, again, can occur. They're normal, and not anything that should cause any alarm. Now, the difference between our cognitive decline as we normally age versus something that may be related to a dementia is also understanding that dementia itself is not a normal part of aging. So oftentimes, I know myself personally, who have loved ones in my family who have suffered from Alzheimer's disease, initially the family just assumes that this memory loss that significantly impacts the ability to function on a day-to-day basis is just something that comes as our loved ones get older. And it is very, very important that we get that message out that that is not the case. And so, again, dementia is characterized, again, by a progressive decline. So it is not episodic, meaning that it's not something, again, that, I forgot, this yesterday, or I forgot this, and then an hour later I can remember it. But dementia, again, it's a progressive decline in not only our memory, but in our overall cognitive functioning. As we, discussed earlier, that's how we think, we reason, and we remember. So those functions include language, so our speaking, our problem solving, judgment. And again, this occurs due to damaged or destroyed nerve cells that impact our cognitive function. And this is usually caused by disease, an illness, or an injury. So some difference between normal or abnormal cognitive decline. So normally as we age, again, we may occasionally make a bad decision, but frequently showing poor judgment and decision making, especially in an area perhaps where that's something that you notice that either yourself or your loved one has thrived in. So these are decisions that are well outside the norm of what you may have noticed or seen in your loved one before. Forgetting to pay a bill, again, can be a normal thing. But not being able to completely manage money and household finances, again, this is very much a sign for the person who perhaps is that one who manages the checkbooks and makes sure all the bills and things get paid on time. Then again, that could be a possible sign and a red flag that you would want to make sure that either yourself or your loved one gets tested and gets screening. Not remembering, what the day is, but remembering it later. Is it Tuesday? Oh, and I thought it was Wednesday. That's something that definitely is normal, but not knowing the date, the year, or the season is definitely a sign that you could have dementia or Alzheimer's or some other cognitive health issue going on, and definitely would warrant a visit to your doctor and to make sure that you're requesting and letting them know that you're having these signs, and so that they can do the proper screening and testing. So some causes of cognitive impairment, again, and the reason we kind of differentiate it, because some causes of cognitive impairment, again, are ones that something happens to the brain, and other ones are those things that are usually the result of a disease or something that is degenerative or neurological. And so things like a traumatic brain injury, and if we think of football, we know that things like concussion, gunshot wounds, blows to the head, those types of things, again, are more of an acquired cause because something has to happen in order for that injury to occur. Same thing, drugs and alcohol is something that, in turn we are doing, or, things we are introducing to our body that does chemically alter how our brain is functioning. HIV is another one that over time, they've just found, that the virus can begin to have causes or have changes in the brain that can lead to impairment. And then just chronic stress and depression are other big causes that impact our cognition. And then in terms of those more degenerative kind of neurological things, some of which have, are predisposed either to maybe genetics or that you're not, things like Parkinson, epilepsy, Alzheimer's disease is a big one on this list, which is what Memory Sunday is primarily focusing on, and things like multiple sclerosis. So what is Alzheimer's disease? And here again, we want you to remember that Memory Sunday and the goal of Memory Sunday, which is June 11, 2017, is to focus on Alzheimer's disease and the specific challenges that we are seeing in the African American community for those living with this, those who are caregivers, and then even out in the community. So Alzheimer's disease, as it relates to African Americans, Alzheimer's overall is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States, but it is the 4th leading cause of death for older African Americans. So just, if we think about what is the things that are killing, our older, population, Alzheimer's is ranking 4th on that list right now. African Americans are generally diagnosed at later stages. When we get diagnosed in these later stages, a lot of the drugs and treatments that are available to help at least slow the progression of it, they are extremely limited in their effectiveness once you get past a certain stage of the disease. And then also the risk of developing Alzheimer's is 2 to 3 times higher for African Americans than it is for any other ethnicity or population. So African Americans also have higher rates of chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease, and these things definitely have a direct relationship between the risk of developing Alzheimer's, especially, Alzheimer's and dementia. So all of these chronic diseases can have what you or predispose you to what's called vascular dementia. And again, diabetes, heart disease, all those affect, how blood flow is being circulated, and it really does increase your risk for developing Alzheimer's or other dementias as well. Persons with a history of either high blood pressure or high cholesterol, you're twice as likely to get Alzheimer's. But those, if you see those with both of those risks, you are 4 times as likely to become demented and develop Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. And so again, if we think about just African Americans in general and the things that we rank first in or have the highest rates in, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, we are at the top of all of those lists. And so the likelihood that a loved one or ourselves actually has both of those is very high. So again, we are looking at being, 2 times to either 4 times as likely to develop Alzheimer's. So overall, Alzheimer's disease, it is the most common form of dementia. And I have that graphic there just so that you can see the difference. So Alzheimer's is a type or is a form of dementia. Dementia itself is a condition that these diseases cause. So if you think about those diseases in a barrel, if you get those result in the development of dementia for the individual. It accounts, again, for about 60 to 80% of all the cases of dementia. And so it is progressive, it's degenerative, and at this point it is irreversible and does lead to death. It's a disease that is related to the brain, and these actual changes can actually occur about 15 to 20 years before you can even see a sign or symptoms. And that goes back to why it's so important that we are getting our annual checkups, we are getting physicals, so that as soon as we do notice some of the symptoms, we can get the right diagnosis and get the right treatments. And as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, we are generally diagnosed at later stages of the disease, making the treatments that are available now just not as effective. So some of the symptoms of Alzheimer's is that, again, it's memory loss, but it's not that occasional memory loss. It's the memory loss that truly disrupts our daily lives. It's challenges in planning or solving problems. We have difficulty completing tasks that are very familiar to us. And we also get confused with time or place or both. Some other symptoms of Alzheimer's disease is also having trouble understanding the visual and spatial relationships. This is why it's extremely challenging later on, perhaps if you're a caregiver and you're trying to make that decision of taking car keys away. And this is one of the biggest reasons why driving becomes extremely dangerous for an individual with Alzheimer's, because you do have these issues in terms of these visual and spatial relationships. And so, again, you want to be mindful, and as you're thinking about care and you're planning ahead, you want to think about discussing those things with your loved one, and just knowing that it may come a time when you do have to, take car keys away or leave car keys and take the batteries out of the car, maybe be creative. Also misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace the steps. So sometimes individuals with Alzheimer's will forget where they have put something. It could be something definitely of value, and then it becomes a question of if someone stole it, but they just really can't remember where they put it. And then also another big one is the withdrawal from work or social activities, and that's usually once the individual starts to see the decline in their cognitive function themselves, and they don't want to be the center. That's where some of the stigma around Alzheimer's disease begins to come into play. So some of the barriers, again, these are specific to the African American community, which affects every aspect of not only Alzheimer's disease, but really any other health issue that we may be facing. And so there's socioeconomic challenges, that's our income, our education, how aware we are of the disease that we have. Some of the cultural, just the unconscious bias and the discrimination that still unfortunately occurs in our health system. There's huge mistrust of the health system, of physicians, of, hopefully we all have heard that, the HBO series about Henrietta Lacks, and a lot of that mistrust is still very much evident today. And then there's also a lack of cultural competency on the part of our healthcare community and understanding, again, specifically the entire kind of totality of a person and how you care for them from that aspect. And then environmentally, there are also challenges that we have. So there's either limited or poor access to quality health care. There's a lack of supportive services. So you go to your doctor, but the things that you need, in addition to what they're giving you, may be not available or not affordable. And then also there's just a poor quality of care in general that we still see in national studies looking at the quality of health care. So all of those impact us getting diagnosed earlier, us getting the proper treatments that we need, the proper care, and ultimately the proper support. So why should the faith community get involved? And so we, fervently believe, and studies have shown that the African American church is the oldest and is the most influential institution within African American culture. And so that's really why we stress the importance of engaging with the faith community to address not only Alzheimer's, as we are with Memory Sunday, but as well as other health issues. So the Memory Sunday campaign, again, this is a mobilization campaign, and we want to promote a national mobilization and education of the faith community to create or to take a greater role in increasing the awareness as well as the understanding of Alzheimer's and supporting those persons living with the disease as well as their caregivers. The goal of Memory Sunday is to utilize, again, the influence that we believe that our faith community has to impact African Americans and to create behavior change, which is a big one, again, that can help contribute to preventing Alzheimer's, or at least reducing the risk of Alzheimer's, as well as making sure that we're getting the proper treatment and care that we need for both the person living with Alzheimer's and also caregivers. So Memory Sunday, again, on June 11, 2017. You'll see here, this is the cover of the newly redesigned book of Alzheimer's. And again, we want to thank our partners at the University of Kentucky and the Sanders Brown Center on Aging. This book is a resource guide for congregations that are serving African Americans who desire to help the families and individuals cope with dementia like Alzheimer's. And so again, the book is available on the website, which is down at the bottom of the screen for you to download. And so we encourage you to do that, and again, use this as a part of the activities that we hope you will be planning and engaging in around Memory Sunday. So how can your congregation get involved? And so one of the first things we want you to do is to go and register your congregation or your organization. We do know that we have some partners who are joining us in this campaign as well. And so we want you to register at the website at www.balmandgilead.org/Memory Sunday. That'll take you directly to the landing page for Memory Sunday, where you can register your congregation. Let us know some of the activities that you might be planning on doing. Download your free copy, and we'll also be getting you or reaching out and making sure that you get your first pack of purple ribbons and your Memory Sunday wristbands. And then you'll also have an opportunity later to download additional ribbons and wristbands to use. We also want you to, again, to stand up and speak out. And by that, we actually want, again, to harness that influence of the faith community and of the pulpit to actually spread the word. So through sermons, through prayers, through some type of special dedication that is making sure that you're distributing or talking about the facts about Alzheimer's and African Americans and showing your support to address these issues and to support those living with it and caregivers. Another way that your church can get involved is to also provide memory screenings at your church. And so one of the webinars, which will be our third one that will take place on May the 3rd at 1 p.m., is actually going to be our memory screening webinar. So this webinar will actually walk you through some examples of community-based memory screenings that you can do in your church. And again, these tests still, you know, they're just a good way to do some of that early detection and let you know should you be going to go see your primary care provider to get the medical testing and screenings done. And so we've also created a Memory Sunday toolkit that accompanies the book of Alzheimer's, and it's available at that same website. The toolkit has additional information about memory screenings. It's got additional information about Alzheimer's and different things that you can do. There's some fact sheets incorporated in it. So the toolkit is just a really comprehensive way kind of some of the how-tos. We've got social media posts in there. And same thing. So the toolkit will also be available for you to download on the website as well. Another way that your church can get involved is to create what we call a caregiving retreat. So caregivers are under an extremely high level of stress. We often find that our caregivers sometimes are dying before the ones that they are actually caring for due to just their poor health. And so we want to make sure that we also taking time to understand how we can better support our caregivers. One of the ways to do that is to create this retreat that can focus on respite. It can provide information to your caregivers. It can help them with proper planning and different resources. And again, we will actually be having a webinar next Wednesday, April 26th at 1 o'clock, that we'll be talking about a caregivers retreat, and we'll have our partners from the North Carolina A&T University joining us for that one. Some additional ways is to wear purple. on Sunday, June 11th, so on the actual designated day for Memory Sunday. And again, this is just to show your support of Memory Sunday. Again, everyone will receive, one pack of the purple ribbons, but we do encourage you to order additional ones that can be distributed through your congregation on Memory Sunday. And then also understanding that it does take a village, and we want our churches and encourage you to reach out and partner with other organizations like your local Alzheimer's Association chapter, your local chapter for your Department of Aging, to partner with them in terms of how you want to, through your congregation, perhaps through your health ministry, to address Alzheimer's in your community and begin to raise awareness. And then to make sure that you're joining the conversation. We truly understand that our voices, that we are stronger together, and the power of social media is growing daily. It's how a lot of people are communicating most things now, and so we want to make sure that you're also using that power of social media to raise awareness about Alzheimer's, to share what you're going to be doing in your congregation or in your community around Alzheimer's and Memory Sunday. Again, as a part of the Memory Sunday Toolkit, there's also a social media guide that has already has sample Facebook and Twitter posts that has, some brief statistics that you can share, and again, share those throughout the month of June, which is Brain and Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and then definitely to make sure that you're sharing those on social media around your Memory Sunday event. And so lastly, we would like you to definitely follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook at the National Brain Health Center for African Americans. When you're tweeting or sharing information, we ask that you use the hashtag Memory Sunday, and to continue and join the conversation with us. So with that, we thank you for joining us today. I think we have a few questions. And we're going to see if we can take those now. If you didn't have an opportunity to ask a question, but you have one now that you'd like to, again, we encourage you to use the chat feature. It can get a little noisy to unmute everyone's line. So again, if you do have a question that you'd like to ask, please put that into the chat box now. And then we will make sure that we can get to it. And I do see where a few people have had some questions. So one of the questions is, does an individual realize that they are moving more into dementia rather than just normal aging? And so actually, yes, so the person who may be developing dementia is the first, usually sees the signs and symptoms before family members, before loved ones, and may actually be able to notice some small changes that won't, even it wouldn't show up or be flagged on a mental status examination. But again, that's where communication, I think, is really key, and more is needed. Oftentimes there's a fear that if someone finds out that you have dementia or finds out that you have Alzheimer's, things will begin to be taken away from you. And so when we can, again, raise the awareness about what it is, and really stressing that importance of saying, if we can detect this earlier, the medications that are available today really do help slow the progression of the disease. And then by making certain lifestyle changes, such as, getting more exercise, the way we eat, and those types of things that actually just help naturally to strengthen and increase brain function, will definitely extend the quality of life for an individual who actually may have dementia or Alzheimer's. Another question is, at what stage does Alzheimer's affect activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing, eating, etc.? So usually you will start to see those changes in stages 3 to 4. So in the late, I would say maybe the middle stages of the disease. So Alzheimer's has, I would say, probably just 3 big groups. So it's early stage disease, you have mid stage disease, and then you have late stage. So definitely mid stage is where you start to see the decline in it. And as you're probably progressing out of that middle stage into the later stages of the disease is definitely where the individual will need assistance with doing these things. And by they are full-blown, in terms of a late stage Alzheimer's, they really do need assistance with the bathing, the dressing, the eating. That's where decisions oftentimes have to be made in terms of can the individual stay safely in their home? Do they have to, be moved into a facility? Do they have to have someone, who's with them around the clock? And that's usually, again, in that later stage where you have to start to make those decisions. Another question, do the screenings have to be done by a medical professional? So in terms of the memory screenings, no. So the memory screenings that we've referenced here and that we're encouraging our churches to actually do are actual tools that you can print out. We actually have the forms that will be available on the Memory Sunday website. We have 2 versions of the memory screenings. And again, you don't have to be a medical professional to actually do these community-based screenings, but what you do want to do is to make sure that you understand how to properly, complete the assessments. And again, they're user-friendly. They give the instructions. The most probably easiest one to use, and we'll discuss it again on the memory screening webinar, is the mini-cause. It takes, 10 minutes or less. You ask a series of questions and you kind of go back and redirect it. Again, you're testing the recall of the individual at that point. And if, either they're able to recall or they're not. If the recall is not there, then that's something that would warrant you to follow up with a medical professional to do a full screening, which again would encompass family history. It's going to accompany past medical history of the individual and actually do some medical screening, such as some MRIs, perhaps, and scans of the brain, as well as some physician-based cognitive assessment tool, which are definitely more in-depth than what we're talking about from the community screenings. So for everyone, yes, thank you as well for answering or asking your questions. I hope they were helpful. Again, if you have any additional questions after the webinar is over, or as you get the handouts and you're going through the handouts, definitely feel free to send us an email via either on the link that you use to register for this session, or you can also feel free to email us at info@balmandgilead.org. You can visit us on our National Brain Health Center website as well. That website actually has tons of additional resources in terms of financial planning, more resources directly geared towards our caregivers. So again, we ask you to, definitely again, find us or, look us up on the website, see what information and tools we have available for you, and then if there's any additional information that you may need or questions that you may have, then we definitely encourage you to reach out to us. And we hope to see you all again on next Wednesday for our next webinar, again, which will be solely focused on the caregivers and their needs and how we can make sure that we're supporting them in their journey as a caregiver. So thank you, everyone, again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.